Yeah, man. What I
That's
was
hot
saying,
shit
man.
right there,
You know what I'm saying?
man.
So what we gonna do? We gonna
We want you to be an activist. And don't take our word for it. Look that shit up. Pulley.
You know, they've been planning for decades already, and it's gotten to the point where they know that their side is their stuff is weakening so much that if they don't make a big move now, they're done. You know what I'm saying?
I really think it is. I really think it's end game. That's what it is. It's end game. These are the Hail Marys. These are those Hail Marys, um, because the reset. And I think that, things naturally reset, but they want to control the reset. You know what I'm saying? They know it's going to happen, but they want to be on the upside of it when it flips. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you so much for joining us. This book was what made you look at the experience of African Americans in this country through the lens of caste rather than race?
Well, it started with that first book, The Warren Brothers Sons, which was about the Jim Crow South and why 6 million African Americans would flee, defect, seek political asylum within the borders of their own country. Why would they do that? What were they leaving? And it ended up that they were leaving a world in which it was against the law for a Black person and a white person to merely play checkers together in Birmingham. You could go to jail if you were caught playing checkers with a person of a different race. And maybe the wrong person was winning or they were having too good of a time, but they felt that the entire foundation of Southern civilization was in peril, could not have it, and literally wrote down a law making it illegal for Black people and white people to play checkers together. That's how extreme and how arcane and how very specific the rules and protocols were of the Jim Crow South. And that actually parallels with a similar impulse and set of rules and expectations within the Indian caste system. One of the pillars is called purity versus pollution, where the subordinated people, the lowest caste people, were not to use the same chalice, the same wells, the same waterways. And the same thing happened here, where actually the water was segregated throughout much of the country, where Black people could not use the same pools, the same beaches. In fact, there was a case in Chicago where a teenager waded into what was called the white water. Water has no color. And then he was stoned to death for having waded into what was perceived as the white water. And that set off one of the worst race riots in our country in Chicago in 1919. So I came to the idea of looking at our country as focusing in on the system of hierarchy that was enshrined in this country going back to the 17th century, that created a hierarchy that put primarily British people at the very top and anyone who looked like them. And then at the very bottom were people who were brought in to be enslaved and to build this country for free. And then, of course, that all began with the stealing of the theft of the land and the genocide of the people who were
already here. Right.
So all of this was creating a hierarchy, and we live with it to this very day.
I'm curious if it was purposeful in the sense that if you're building a new country, do you believe hierarchy then is a necessary element? Must there be in a society a dominant caste and a subordinate caste? And is this something that all societies suffer from, just not to the obscenity and perversion that was? And to give people a sense of it in terms of perspective, the Nazis, when looking to institute their dominant versus subordinate caste, looked to America's racial system of segregation and caste and thought it too severe.
Yeah.
I mean, reading that was devastating.
It's gut-wrenching to realize that the Nazis did not need anyone to teach them how to hate. That they had down pat. But when they were looking for justification and jurisprudence and a legal framework on which to build a reasoning, presumably rationality, to do what they were ultimately going to do. They actually looked to this country, first of all, for the definition of race. I mean, it turned out that our country was more led the world, sadly, in finding ways to categorize people on the basis of the social construct known as race.
Mhm.
And through those laws, I mean, they had these blood laws, the laws that said, if you had one drop of black blood, you were black.
Right.
For other cases, they would say 1/4 of Chinese blood made you Chinese. The United States had extensive jurisprudence, and the Nazis looked all over the world, and it turned out that they had to come to this country.
Right.
What we often look to South Africa as a country that has an extreme case of racial hierarchy, but
Mhm.
they actually look to the United States as well. Apartheid followed Jim Crow. Jim Crow was set in motion in the 19th
Right.
century. And so we were the leaders
Right.
in the Western world.
Not a great, we're number one to shout. Not one
No.
of those where you want to get on the hilltops, but it does make me wonder, because it seems pretty clear that the founders of this country valued the union over the ideal. Whatever our founding documents said, they valued the creation of that union far more than they valued following the high-minded rhetoric. And do you know, was that explicit in their discussions and negotiations? And how did this legal framework come into place? Was it borrowed from an English framework? Who were the designers of this incredibly restrictive prison that we built?
Well, interestingly enough, they actually broke from English tradition when they created this, what I would call, caste of people who were forced to be enslaved by tying the status of an individual, of a child, not to the father, which is what the English law would have said, but to the mother. And what that did was that allowed the founders, the slaveholders, people who were creating basically a slaveocracy, to take possession of any child born to a black woman, and to make sure that child, any black child, would automatically assume the status of the mother, which would be enslavement. So that's how you had generational inheritable slavery and servitude that was built into the identity of anyone who was of African descent in this country. So in a way, they actually veered from it and created
Right.
a new framework for the hierarchy here.
But it shows, though, this wasn't happenstance. This wasn't a condition that developed out of some sort of extreme condition. It was design. It was purposeful, and which makes it, I'm not saying it would have been any better if the intention had been different, but then the cruelty of it is that much more, our country is that much more culpable.
Well, I think that in a way, the intentionality kind of, in a way, it diverts us from the end result. It doesn't matter why the person is whipping this individual at the moment. I mean, if they truly believe that this is their God-given right, that this is they were born to dominance, they've been programmed to believe that they are over these people, that these people are not even human, so they can do anything they want to them. So in a way, it becomes so encoded for so long, passed down through generations, that it becomes the perceived wisdom, it becomes the convention, it becomes what you expect to be the case. In other words, you come to accept it because it's been in place for so long, passed down through the generations. Even the idea of race itself is a social construct. We've come to believe it to be what it is, but this is a construction. When people arrived from parts of Europe, they might have arrived thinking of themselves as Polish or as Irish or as Welsh or as German, whatever they might have been. They were not thinking of themselves in terms of the current day language of race. But once they entered into the hierarchy that was created in this country, they had to shed that. And they were joining into a pre-existing hierarchy in which they were characterized as something that would have had no meaning back in Europe, but had tremendous meaning of power, influence, and entitlements in this country.
Who invented this? somebody must have made the invention, because I think you just hit on something, which is you think of yourselves as ethnicity, certainly, and Polish and or tribal, where certain tribes or certain things. Where did this idea of race then enter the conversation? Is it at that time of subjugation, or is this something that was a theory that had been talked about and was deployed for the benefit of this dominant cat?
Well, of course, it evolved over the decades of the 17th century, where clearly they were bringing in people who looked different from themselves, and they used what should have been the neutral physical characteristics that should have no meaning other than just the beautiful range of human manifestation, and they converted that into a value of hierarchy, in which, based upon what you look like, it would be determined whether you would be whether you could own property or be property. And that was the emerging hierarchy that was built out of the fact that they perceived themselves to be needing to build a country out of wilderness. They first tried to enslave indigenous people. They killed off so many indigenous people, drove them from the land, and then, of course, the indigenous people had some ways of being able to evade because they knew the land.
Right, they knew the landscape.
And it turned out that they tried to do this with Irish indentured servants and others from Europe. But those people could also escape and blend in with the landowners and the powers that be, who were the British. And so they found that here were a group of people who could not escape. They were readily visible. They turned these otherwise neutral characteristics into a value that determined who could do what in the country.
And once established, as it sunk in, and you talk about this, it takes on its own momentum, its own inertia, and you talk a little bit in the book about these scientific experiments where the blue eyes are given, dominance over the brown eyes, and how those experiments play themselves out. They set it up as sort of this bifurcated system, whiteness and blackness, and then they start to expand whiteness when they need that. And how does that play into the perpetuation of a system like this?
Well, what it does,
Hey, y'all out there. What's up?
What's up?
Man, I apologize for being late.
Up, bro?
I fucking fell asleep. I had a snooze and I kept hitting the snooze. I guess my phone was like, this dude don't really want to get up. My snooze stopped going off, and I think it was one of y'all texts or something that woke me. I don't know what woke me up. Just woke up and I was like, oh shit. It is what it is, man. I apologize to everybody for being late.
That's all good, bro. You human, bro. You got to get rest too.
Yeah, man. I was running around doing a bunch of shit. I was dealing with these kids and shit, and the kids is what made me tired, because I got my youngest. Anyways, y'all don't want to hear about that. What do y'all think about this video right here so far?
Man, it's interesting. I never really heard anybody talk about it like that, but
Damn, you're breaking up.
like, bro,
You broke up at the end. What was that you
very
said?
sad. I was like, it's really interesting, and it's sad, like how did this
How did we get here?
that we have today? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I mean, you think about it now today, it's almost like they base race still exists, but it's more so like now they base a lot of this off of classism, as well, so I don't know if that makes sense.
It's really what we be saying on the show all the time, but I hardly hear anybody speak of it in these terms. But that's what she broke it down, and she said she had to look at it through a class way to better understand it. And she wrote this book, and that's what they're talking about. So, and the idea of whiteness super interesting to me. And then how all encompassing whiteness, like they said, we got to expand, we got to change, we got to, we got to let some more people into this whiteness, because that way we can have more strength.
Yeah, yeah. The shit is crazy, bro. It's a harsh reality. It's a sad truth, See how they break it down,
Yeah, I don't want
and
to
it's
put y'all to
crazy.
sleep. Go
It's
ahead.
crazy how. No, I'm just saying, like it's crazy how, like, you know, just something that I've seen take place, in my time. If there's this one white person or that's friends with you as being a black man, how he is now kind of placed in that class. You know what I'm saying? It's like the way that they treat. It's
Yeah,
crazy
you get
how
to
that shit
lower.
works.
Right, I get what you're saying. You get to lower your class by hanging out with black folks, like,
Yeah,
kind of.
it's just
Um,
Well,
stupid.
Go ahead.
that's how I was just gonna say. That's how they treated my great grandfather. I mean, he was originally from Ireland, but well, I think during that time he was, because I mean, Irish were also considered black at that time too. So, but same, on the same token, with him having white skin, you know, just because he was, he's married to a black woman, had you know, what they consider mulatto children, they put kind of left him on the black side. All of the census stuff has him as of course he was head of household, but they still had him listed as black. And I think that was because instead of having these black kids or non-white kids that were just the way that they label it or whatever. And I mean, I guess this thing kind of does kind of clear up a lot of a lot. Most people don't really see that, and maybe even never really had any example of that. But um, America will remind you of all the history, and if you really pay attention.
Yes. Well, she's going to talk about it in this show. I don't know. I want to play another clip, but I don't remember what part it is of the video. But about how one of the big problems, like, is silent. And she said that the reaction that a lot of people got, I guess from her reading her book, I think that's what it was. They was like, they didn't know this history. They didn't know none of this stuff. They didn't know none of it existed, that it had ever happened. And she said, well, there's a problem with that. The problem is that skews people's view of people today. They don't understand how people ended up in the situations that they're in today because they weren't taught this part of the history. It was left out. So,
And
because
they
of that,
listen.
that's why they like to victim blame. You know what I'm saying? Because they're like, pull yourself up, get your shit together. What the fuck is going on? But they wasn't told the rest of the story.
Yeah. And that's really where a lot of problems will be. Like, I mean, like the whole CRT, whether it's CRT or just the proper history, like by the certain groups not learning, is gonna make it even worse for a whole nother generation or more. You know what I'm saying? It's just
Yeah, yeah,
you're able to live with this privilege of hey, I was good, and I'm sure there was a lot of white people that didn't really play the role of I mean, there was only a few that was like masters and whatever, but of course a lot of them are still able to use their their
Right.
whiteness as a
That's what she was gonna say. Like, even though a lot of people, like she says everybody's culpable, and it's like it becomes ingrained in you to just, like, try to please the powers that be. You know what I'm saying? To get by. So, but then that causes you to uphold this same system that they created.
hmm
And that includes everybody all the way down you know, the spectrum.
Yeah.
Let me play a bit more.
And it's actually like diabolically brilliant because what it does is it creates the
I haven't played this before, have I? Tell me if I played this before. I'm kind of half sleeping, tripping, bro. But I saw this video today, so I can't imagine me playing this before. But my brain is telling me I played this before.
the
I don't
the,
recall.
the uppermost group is then because of the power wielded by those in the uppermost group. Not everyone in the uppermost group, but the group itself.
Right.
And then that means anyone entering that society has to figure out, how do I survive in this hierarchy? How do I survive in a world in which people who look like this are at the very top and they control and own virtually everything? This is going back to the founding of the country.
Right.
And then those who are at the very bottom have no rights, not even over their own bodies. And how does someone coming in figure out where they fit in and how will they survive? And that creates this sense, in order to survive, I must accede to and be in the good graces of those who are at the very top. It creates this natural human impulse to want to be more like those who are in power in order to survive.
Right.
I mean, in some ways, I don't blame people for the natural response to survive. I'm just saying that what it does is it programs everyone into the belief system,
Right.
and to act in accord with what is required in order to survive in a pre-existing hierarchy such as ours. And it's been going on for so long, it's 400 years in the making, that it has been so set in the ways in which we move about that we don't even see it. That's the power of it. It's almost
Right.
invisible.
It's invisible.
And you even talk about how it's also absorbed by the caste that has been designated as lower, that
Yes.
that the people in that caste start to absorb the lesson of them being lesser.
Yes.
And the dominant caste even relies on perverting some in that caste for their aims, to police the others, on plantations and in concentration.
That part right there, bro, makes me so sad, you know? And this is what I see whenever I look around the community. I see people who have accepted this shit as the way, the way things have always been and the way things will always be. And, you know, nigga, you might as well just keep, just put your head down and do what they say.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you see that shit so much. People, in a sense, lost hope, But just to kind of go back to what you and Pat was speaking about a little bit ago before you played played this clip, I think with a lot of the people not being educated, not even knowing this history, I think that's why you have so many of them that say, "What not white supremacy, but privilege, white privilege. There ain't no white privilege. That doesn't exist. That's just something that people, a word or something that people say, and it's like, no, there is a certain amount of privilege that you guys have. There's certain things that you will get away with that nobody else would get away with. You know, it's just
Whether they subscribe to it or not, and it doesn't even matter if they support the system or not. It doesn't matter. They still benefit because that's the way the system is set up. It's set up so it's like that's what I be talking about. Where you came out of your womb, where you came out of your mom's womb, and your skin tone then already determined how much human rights you get and all of this shit your whole fucking life. And then the other part of it is how much money your parents had when you came out of their womb. That's another thing that determines that. So, but what's crazy about that is people are still sitting on the money they made off of slavery. So, like, come on. I don't see how you can value. There's horrible people who have money and there's horrible people who don't have money. What I mean is, how much money you have doesn't determine like your humanity.
Yeah.
I want to play a little bit more because I was hoping that they would get to the other. I'm glad they just said that point that I mentioned right there. They cleared it up. So that's what I was talking about. But it's another part that the silence, like the let me see.
Camps. and things like that. How do you elevate a group that's been subjugated like that? How do you begin to dismantle it? And is it something, you talk about in India, it's there for thousands and thousands of years, and it's not race-based. It's just sort of, they've decided.
Yeah.
The experiences you have at conferences where an upper caste Indian woman, and you can spot her. You can spot that she is upper caste in the way that she talks to somebody who is giving a presentation, who has studied the Dalits or studied the untouchables, and walks and just thinks nothing of stepping in and correcting it.
Yeah, this is the way in which we have all been programmed. I mean, the programming is in every sphere of our society. It's from the billboards and the commercials to who dies first in a movie. You see, like it's everywhere. It's
right. And one of my favorites was the scholar that you went to, and I can't remember where the conference was where you met him. He was, I think, a Brahmin. He was somebody from a caste there. And he would say, like, I'm from the warrior class. And you're like, he's like 5'7". He's like, 5'7", 130 pounds. And you're
exactly.
Like, all right, that's fair enough. If that's your caste, that's your caste.
He was a geologist.
Boy, does it show you, though, just the arbitrary and incredibly strange nature of all this.
It's everywhere. So we've all been programmed as to who is valued in our society and who must be protected at all costs, and whose lives do not matter, as much as we have the Black Lives Matter movement as a result of the recognition of the ongoing quest for equity and recognition of the humanity of people who've been subjugated for so long. This actually, what it means is that everyone becomes, in some ways, a participant, whether we choose to or not, because this is what we've inherited. One of the things that I say, one of the metaphors that I like
this
to
is
use
good.
to help
The
us
house.
to see this is, in recent years, it's not been unusual to hear people say something to this effect of, this is not America, or I don't recognize my country, or this is not who we are.
That's right.
Well, that means that we, the majority of Americans, have been deprived of the opportunity really to know our country's true and full history. And if you knew our country's true and full history, you would realize that our country is like an old house. It's like an old house. And if you inherit an old house, if you take possession of an old house, you did not build the uneven pillars and joists and beams. You did not build the frayed electrical wiring. You did not build the corroded pipes that you're now having to deal with. But when you take possession of an old house, guilt and shame are not going to help you fix it. You have to look at that building inspector's report and see what is it that we're dealing with. And then you don't get emotional about it. You roll up your sleeves and you get to work in fixing that. And, while you didn't build those uneven pillars and joists and beams and the frayed wiring and the corroded pipes, any further deterioration is on the hands of those who are in possession of that old house now. It is on people who are here now to take responsibility.
That's where it diverges somewhat, because, and that's such a
That's
great
as far as we get.
metaphor about the house.
We don't get no further than
And
that.
now imagine that the people who live in that house become resentful and decide that it's actually your fault that it's like this, and they're going to let it go to more decay. That's the thing that is so hard to wrap your head around. You have a founding document that states the inalienable rights given to all humans of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that all men are created equal. And for a subjugated group to ask for that as though it is a negotiation, the document says granted by God, not by Senator Calhoun of South Carolina. Like, the idea that has been an ongoing negotiation is the real shame of this years later, that everybody thinks now, like, hey man, you got your Civil Rights Act, so we're done here. And where does that resentment come from?
Well, there are a whole lot of answers to that. One of them is that I think that we are in a crisis of identity. I think we're in an existential crisis in this country, in part because of 2042. or 2045. That's the year in which the United States has been projected to have a demographic configuration different than anything any of us have ever known, which would mean that we no longer would have the historic majority that all of us have grown accustomed to, would no longer be in the historic majority. That is a configuration that no one alive knows or has experienced ever. This affects everybody up and down the hierarchy in all segments of our society. And I think that there's this recognition that this is impending and this is a challenge. There's language that political scientists use, which is dominant group status threat, which means is another way of talking about the existential crisis of what happens when we are all accustomed to a particular configuration as to who is in power, who has this, and who's to be where. And then that changes. And then what happens when those who have been subjugated and that everyone has grown accustomed to seeing at the bottom, what happens when they rise? What happens when there's opportunity for them? What happens when, if there's this sense that if people who've been at the bottom begin to move up, then that diminishes, it's not true, but it's a view that it diminishes the role and power and value of the people who've been programmed to see themselves as dominant all along.
Bing, ping, bada bing. That's it right there. I mean, she said it.
Yes,
Well, what?
not anything.
Yeah, I can't argue with nothing that she said.
Yeah.
You know, dominant social group. I mean, dominant. What did she say? Like the fear of the, you know, the dominant group changing or whatever. Like, however she said it. So, like, that's it right there. Because, like he said, where's this resentment coming from? You know, where it's like, we gave you your damn Civil Rights Act. Now, what the fuck else do you want? Like, damn, bro, where's all this animosity and anger and shit coming from, bro? Like, I'm just like, I got all fucked up. It's like if somebody had a wound, you know, they got hurt, like you stabbed them. And it's like, man, I gave you a damn Band-Aid. Now shut up, you're crying. Like, bro, I'm still bleeding, bro. Like, you stabbed me, bro. Like, can we talk about this? I need to go to can you take me to the hospital?
That shit is painful as hell, and I don't know if I can let it go.
Yeah.
Just yet.
So I think that both sides have this kind of, or this also kind of like this fear, this resentment of the change, you know, this resentment of, like, you know, atonement. Because what I be saying all the time is how, like, us as individuals in the United States, one of our biggest problems is seeing ourselves wrong. You know what I mean? Like, admitting that we did something wrong and, you know, just being real about it. And I think that's programmed in us because of the society that we live in doesn't want to atone for what it did wrong, or even admit that it did anything wrong.
Yeah. In their minds, they don't feel that they did anything wrong. I mean, honestly speaking.
Yeah. Yeah. The lamb was given to them by God, and they had you know, they're more superior, so then they deserve to use these people as slaves. Like, they, you know, and even the ones that don't think like that are like, well, I didn't have nothing to do with this, you know, I didn't build this system, you know, things are just the way that they are. I mean, you know, that's what makes me the most angry. It's like things would have happened like this regardless. Like this is the way, you know, this is just the natural order of things. It's been like this forever and gonna be like this forever. Like, you know, everybody just need to accept their role in society. And, like, if you was born pale or whatever the hell, then, you know, and if you was born dark or whatever the hell, then, you know, that's just what it is. It's like, I didn't make it this way. It's just the way it is. But that's not true. Because this was created, this whole system was made up, you know. It's all artificial, really. It's all not even real, even. And but we believe it, so that's what makes it real.
Sorry to say, but that is more than true. Um, really don't know. Honestly, right now, trying to keep myself.
Awake. I know.
Yeah.
I understand. And the next video I want to play is Common Ass Voice, oh girl, but she's talking about conspiracy theory stuff, so it might grab y'all attention. I sent this earlier today because I really just wanted to. This is an add-on to this week. It kind of out of the direction too, but
Conspiracy theory.
yeah, I'm just saying it like that because that's what she says.
Yeah.
And that also protects me and it protects her from anybody, you know.
No, I feel you. I got it.
Yeah. So, but this, I mean, hey, y'all tell me what you think. How real her ideas can be on this particular subject. This video is 13 minutes. I ain't gonna lie. I want to play the whole thing, but let's play it in clips. Let me see. Did she sum it up at the end? I can't remember. Oh, about the farmland and shit at the end. She sums it up real good at the end. Talks about us growing plants. That's why we got to be careful with this because at the end of the video, she starts talking about people growing their own food and shit.
Well, just kind of subsidizing yourself. That's pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yes. Yeah. So we just got to be careful when we talk about stuff like that because YouTube be tripping on that shit.
Famine, death. Spin the wheel. Which one are we landing on today, internet friends? Can't breathe through my nose today because of pollen, but still doing this recording, so I don't want to see any comments saying I've been replaced by some other broad with a nasally voice and it's not me. It is me in all my glory, and yes, you got it. Clippity clop clop, the horsemen don't stop. Famine. That's what we're talking about today. We're talking about famine. More specifically, governments around the world have announced that we will be facing food shortages soon, but hey, don't worry, they got this thing all under control. They have your best interests at heart. Don't sweat it. Why do you look nervous? Just sit back, watch some Netflix, have a sip of your White Claw, and take a deep breath, dear citizen. Just have a scroll through TikTok. We saved you 16 cents on hot dogs last 4th of July. You think we're gonna let you starve? Last week, on the same day actually, President Joe Biden and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau talked about impending food shortages. During a press conference, Trudeau warned food shortages were on Canada's horizon. He blamed global supply chain issues and that pesky little old war in Ukraine for these problems, saying, quote, "We've seen disruptions of supply chains around the world, which is resulting in higher prices for consumers in democracies like ours, and resulting in significant shortages and projected shortages of food, of energy in places around the world." End quote. Like I said, on the same day, President Joe Biden said that food shortages are going to be real and that it was largely due to sanctions imposed on Russia. Isn't this the same fella who told us that this past winter all the purebloods were going to die? Well, it's spring, baby, and we're still kicking. It's also just amazing how much this Ukraine-Russia conflict is fair game to use as an excuse for, like, anything. High gas prices? Your grocery bill skyrocketing? Crime rates escalating in your cities? Gimpney? You know who to blame. It's those dirty Ruskies. Can I use that slang on here? I bet I can. I can discriminate against white people on here all I'd like as long as they're white. You know what I mean? Like white. Russians are white. Any other flavor you can't say anything else about without getting canceled. What are you, a bigot? Yes, it's Russians, rapid fire printing dollar bills over at the Federal Reserve leading to hyperinflation. Making you cry like a little baby in the aisles of your grocery store. It's Russians. They did it. It's them. Yeah, totally. Now fight about what...
That's so fucking like, let me read this comment. But that's so fucking like, they're just like, the way she talks is like, I feel like that's the attitude that they have, really. It's like, go scroll on TikTok. What do you know, let the grown people, yeah. You know what I mean? You don't even know what you're talking about. Go away. Go argue about trans people. Let me read this comment right here. It says, "Do you think those in power who see their hold on society slipping away will offer reparations with a catch? 1 million per African American, but you have to give up your citizenship. What percentage of African Americans on the brink of poverty or lower middle class will accept this? And I think whoever wrote this, I think you're pretty on point, because I think that reparations is going to come with a catch if they ever, because they're not trying to really actually atone. So therefore, it's gonna be used in some kind of way. As far as citizenship, who knows what it would be, what it would be? You know, you got to give up all your rights. You know, or I don't know. You know, you got to move. You got to leave the United States. I don't know. Who knows? It's gonna be something, and you're gonna be like, "What? No, that's not what I wanted."
Yeah, but if you want this cool meal, this is what you got to do. So, do you want the reparations, or do you know? And then they'll
Yeah,
use that and say, well, if black people were treated so badly in America, why did they not take their reparations money and leave?
Right.
Instead, they chose to stay here.
So they must be good. So we're just gonna keep treating them like we've been treating them. The ones that want reparations can get it, and you know everything is good. Done and done.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much how that shit gonna roll.
well, I guess somebody who understands the how everything works, I would definitely take that deal. It didn't say, well, well, not leaving, leaving the United States and leaving America are two different things. So, um, it's just all how you look at it. But either way, I don't know if that's even really a legal deal, because where do you go back to when you never left? But I don't know. Anyhow,
Yeah. Yeah. So what would they do? Like, yeah, that would be a problem. But see, maybe, I was saying before, a good way, a good part of reparations would be to give us a state. They stole a bunch of damn land anyway.
state.
Just a state. At least that, Florida. I don't know. They're not gonna come off of Texas. They give us Alabama or something, Georgia. I don't know. I'm just saying. I don't think that would ever happen.
I
But
think it needs to be more than a state. It had to be quite a few states, at least 4 or 5 at the least.
already they ain't gonna come off one state. 4 or 5, they're gonna be like, nigga, get the. How about I just blow up your town? How about we just finish eradicating y'all? Damn, y'all still here? That's one of the things I really feel strongly about. My existence is the resistance. And I say I read that or something somewhere or whatever, and it stuck with me. My existence is the resistance. It's like, that's why that's another reason why, it's the police brutality. It's like, damn, y'all niggas are still here? God damn. Thought we killed all y'all.
Yeah, that shit crazy, bro.
It's a reminder. It's a stab in the eye. It's a little poke. It's a stab every time they see us. It's, because it's like the Aboriginals. It's like, the people who have rightful, heirship to this land. That's why what they're doing to Palestine, to the Palestinians, because everybody, they argue and they change the law and they be like 1947 and all of this shit, and because of the war, all of this is really our land. But deep down inside, everybody knows whose land that is. There is no argument. But they make up this shit. They argue about this shit. Meanwhile, they're basically genociding these people, because if there's no more people there to say, hey, my great 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 grandparents lived right here, bro. I've been here the whole time, bro. The egg I came out of was in the egg of some woman who was standing right here. So if you kill all those people, then you can be like, this is our land, nigga. We won the war, whatever, da. But as long as there's people there that really have heirship to the land, that's a problem. When you, especially when you did it illegally, when you stole it from them. when you did it really shadily.
Well, I mean, it's all captured in records. It's not a secret, and there's a paper trail. So, I mean, honestly, I mean, this is something that's well known. It's just that the theories, the theologies in which they sell the people that they know won't go study it and see it for themselves will continue to believe the lies. And I mean, the bad thing about it is that it's a majority. It's like more people than not that's gonna just sit there and believe whatever it is that they're told, and they continue the narrative regardless of how many people have debunked the whole idea. You know, many of the lies, and can show. You can see the proof for yourself. It's just that it's not.
And and another part of that is how they rebrand people because of part of it is because of the way they teach history, and that's why I really study. I love history because these people that they talking about historically, like when they tell you these older stories, and again, the United States hasn't been around that long, you guys, a couple hundred years, 300 years max, right? Fucking
less than 300 years. It's 200. 200.
when they tell you these stories about these peoples, like whoever they talking about, Pocahontas, whoever the hell they talking about, nigga, those people are still here, bro. They didn't disappear. They call them Mexicans now. They call them Guatemalans now.
You talking
They,
about
they,
here
they,
in the U.S.?
well, I don't separate the Americas. These are, in anyways, when you're looking at Central and North America, these are all the same people.
For the most part.
They moved around. That was their range. They lived in this, like, I don't know what you want to call it, southwest, southeast, southwest, whatever, like southern, like basically Central America up into the States. These are all the same people for the
Yeah,
most part.
I mean,
For the most part.
I would say even further down than that. Of course, the ethnic cleansing has happened over the years. To some for a bunch
Yeah,
of
but when
them.
they talk about Maya, those people are still here, bro. They call them the Maya in the textbooks, and they call them, I don't know, Guatemalan now. You get what I'm saying?
Or niggas.
Yeah, that's my point. You get me. That's my point. And that's what I think that people don't understand. All these different distinctions that they give us in present day is a modern, creation. And it's also to help to keep us from being able to see who we really are. And that, because that's the thing. Niggas always talking bad about Jamaicans or Haitians or whatever, bro. Like, bro, them is the same people as you, bro. Like if you from Louisiana area, you are Haitian, like, you know what I'm saying? Trust and believe me.
Well, really a lot of them from based on the history, like a lot of the Mexicans migrated to Louisiana, out of Mexico because of a lot of those wars. The Mexican American War, and even stuff even before that. But either way, it is the same people. I mean, like I said, it was totally, we mixed for thousands, like for
Who
definitely
knows?
hundreds of years for certain.
Probably
But
hundreds of thousands.
well, yeah,
But who knows? Those
uh,
numbers, are here or there. But yeah, so that's the point. The point is that it's the same people because they've been mixing back and forth. They travel each other. They trade with each other. These are, they might have their tribal differences where they kind of fight about this or that, but pretty much they're the same people. And then like Louisiana got special connections to like the Caribbean, especially Haiti, And that's another thing. People want a history. Like, you think, okay, y'all look at the movies or read the books, or they tell you the history of slavery, and the blacks are all enslaved and they're in the South. You think it wasn't black people or brown people moving back and forth in and out of the United States during this time? Get the fuck out of here. It was people moving back and forth between Haiti and the United States and the different Caribbean islands like crazy. Just because that's what they did historically. What people do is what people do, and that's what they've been doing, and they've been doing it. Like, slavery disrupted to a certain extent and caused problems or whatever to a certain extent, but it didn't stop what these people were doing and had been doing and still continue to do to this day.
No, I mean it's not like
Well,
some new like paradigm of moving around the world. Like people have always done that. Like the migrations. I mean, and it it probably wasn't like I mean it probably was a lot like what it exactly how it is today. Some people it wasn't the whole migration, the immigration processes and this, that, and the other because we were more free about who you allowed certain people to come in and okay, you find your place, you set up, you live. But it's I think people is I guess that's maybe the best way to say it, but like they try to make it as if all these processes are new, like we're like human beings were not human beings before.
Yeah, and the way they tell history, it makes you feel like that. But it's so dumb because that's what I be trying to get people to understand. Like, you can't look at history through a present lens, but you can. What humans do is what humans do. So, moving around, we move around, and we've done that forever. So, like, even like vacations and shit. If you were able, yes, way back in the day, oh shit, travel to such and such, and chill, and then go back home. Even during us war, or even during slavery, you know what I'm saying? Be like, bruh, it's kind of dangerous in the South of the United States right now, but who knows what they called it? So it might not be a good idea, but it had niggas like, man, nigga, fuck that shit. I'm gonna just slide up in there and do my thing and then slide up out of there. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure they did because they knew what they were doing.
Yeah,
That's another thing. We think that they were dumb. And the more I study history, I think these people were smarter than us. They've been dumbing us down. Like, you can clearly see how, like, with the internet and everything, how they're dumbing us down present day. But I think they've been doing that since before that. They've been dumbing us down for a minute now. And you go back, those people were more intelligent. They were more capable. They were smarter. They were smarter than us. I'm sorry.
yeah. No, I wouldn't apologize because I mean I pretty much agree. I mean I think I know you and I have had these conversations, but yeah, the people of the past were definitely smarter than us, you know. And then a lot of things happen in a short period of time that even just the difference between what's happened from the 80s to now has really made people so dependent on like on other other sources, like instead of the way that they before the 80s they were more self-sufficient, more dependent upon themselves and their groups, to where they've given away their power to the smallest groups of people on the planet, and we're pretty much dwindling into like just fucking pits.
Damn.
Like,
Damn, that's heavy, man. I be thinking about that. There's a saying I heard a long time ago, and I don't want to. I'm gonna butcher this. So it's like Jewish person, and there's like he's like the Jewish people. We're like we're like the hawk, and we go into the nest and we just eat, and it's like society is, they just there to provide us with sustenance. Like they exist for that reason,
Hmm.
and this is their philosophy. Let me play some of this.
Whether or not mediocre men should dominate women's sports. Bigot. Anyway, I told you months ago that they were sabotaging the supply chain, or maybe I asked whether or not y'all thought the supply chain was being sabotaged. I seem to remember that you did think so, and I shared my personal opinion that the ruling class wants these supply chain disruptions because supply chain disruptions benefit government in the sense that in times of crisis and in times of shortage, government can step in, impose mandates, laws, whatever, and control large sectors of what was formerly considered the free market. And I summarized that the whole series of action, the aforementioned action, would certainly lend itself to the goals of the Great Reset, which we'll talk about here in just a second. Such crazy timing, all of this Agenda 21 stuff rolling out in the year 2021 and still going strong in 2022. It's just the perfect storm of all these circumstances. So let's take a closer look at some of these circumstances, coincidences, some might say, contributing to these food shortages. We can't forget to lay the foundation of manufactured crisis, of COVID lockdowns that forced small businesses to close while leaving Amazon and Home Depot and Walmart open, but inevitably put strain on the production line where workers had to be tested each time they showed up for work or were fired for not getting the vaccine. Furthermore, in 2021, the Biden administration announced that it was expanding a program that paid farmers to leave land fallow, or without crops, which was part of a broader government-wide effort to cut greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030. Agenda 2030, part of the Great Reset.
Pause, man. It's like the thing, like she's saying, like this video really hit me hard because it's like she made me think about how many different things are happening at once here. Like we got a bunch of shit happening at once, bro. And you know what's crazy? I was thinking about the TV shows. Iverson or Tiverson or Peterson. I don't know what the fucking name of it is. HBO show. They have sex on it. Attractive people. Anyways, they have some of the best TV shows out right now. Like some of these shows are really good. Euphoria. I don't watch TV, but from the critics, they're saying they're good. I caught clips of these, so I understand why people like them or whatever. What I'm saying is, you got and then you got TikTok. So meanwhile, they're doing all of this shit, all of the shit that they've been trying to get done. They just like ramming this shit through all at one time, bro. Like it's the perfect storm for them. Do y'all hear what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's the whole chaos magic that they're doing, is that if they keep, like the whole keeping you distracted with this, and because some people might be like, oh yeah, this bullshit, but then it's like, but this thing, this is what we gotta pay attention to. So they got different segments of our of our country that's totally encapsulated in one or more of these different things that they're worried about, that they're scared about. And but that's just, that's
And
how
each one of them are weapons of mass distractions, to quote Doc, since he's not here. But yeah, that
Exactly.
weapons of so, and that's what it is. So, but meanwhile, they're doing all of this fucking big. They're making big moves.
Yeah,
Yep.
totally, bro.
Fucking up a
And
bunch of shit.
Think that they're trying to do. So, but the natural order of things would be for them to not be on the upside after the reset. The natural order of the world, like the way things are going, really underneath, not in the narrative, but what's actually happening on the ground is it's going in the other direction. And then you got to look at these countries, try to understand it in geopolitics also, with China, India, Russia, some of these African nations, and the pivot Because
Well,
you know this I before I was talking about no World War III, but now I feel like we're going down that road now because you're starting to see these geopolitical divisions that's happening. The narrative of the East and the West being dominant is, you know, it's losing its, you know, it's losing its hold on to people. And you got what they would call the East. They're coming together. You know what I'm saying? What's his name? Keep popping up in the news. Hold on. Let me get this. What country is this? Uruguay, Paraguay? Fuck. Hungary. Hungary is the country. And the guy, he keeps popping up. That guy. So, and he's like, one thing is weird about that connection. Like, he's cool with Russia. And you know how I always be talking about the fascism and Russians not liking Nazis. But Hungary got a bit of a fascist tint to it. And Hungary is pretty cool with Russia. And the that guy, he just won re-election or whatever, and he's been in there for longer than Putin actually. So, but then you can look at that situation as it being smart that Putin is cool with this guy because he's been in power for so long. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of getting off track, but my point is these alliances that have nothing to do with the West that have strength over there. You know what I'm saying? So this strength grows, and if the West keeps on its road that it's doing of this like Western domination narrative, they're gonna end up running into this Eastern fucking block of countries that's gonna be like, bro, we done had enough.
so I mean, these resets happen every so often. But if you not, you know, because like I said, I mean, you know, this is something I somewhat studied or listened to through different, you know, videos, and they break it down to how these things actually happen. I mean, this is something that's never that it's not that it never happened before. It's just that nobody that's living has seen it happen. But they're preparing for things. That's totally insane, and like I said, this is a lot of desperation. I mean, the whole AI stuff and putting their consciousness into the AI so that when they're gone, they can still be here to try to rule over people who that are still here.
That's
You know,
crazy. Insanity. Let me play a bit more.
This plan incentivized farmers to take land out of production by raising rental rates and incentive payments. When the Biden administration announced this plan, they were adding 4 million more acres of farmland to make a total of 25 million acres of farmland that is basically unused. During this time, videos circulated from farmers on TikTok and other social media platforms saying that the Biden administration was paying them to destroy their crops. But mainstream media outlets have worked around the clock to debunk this rumor. Even though it's well known that governments pay farmers to destroy surplus crops for the purposes of supply management to keep prices stable at the grocery store. Around the same time, a report came out saying that Microsoft billionaire Bill Gates sealed his position as the largest owner of farmland in the United States.
Okay, did y'all hear the part about, you know, that they pay them to destroy crops? And
I remember when they were doing that last year.
Yep.
yeah, and that's a real thing that happens. It really happens sometimes. Normal. This is kind of normal, I would say, you know, to a certain extent. Not to say that it's right, but they do this. Yeah.
In a time period when they're already looking at things being limited, like, I mean, this was a bad period in time to say that when, you know, you can barely stock the shelves.
Right.
And,
so you can't be doing that now. And it's the illusion of scarcity. And we talk about it all the time. But this is a common practice because it could just be like this particular crop had some bumps on it or whatever. Like they have these real strict, you know, rules on what's acceptable and what's not. You know, what can be sold and what's not. And then sometimes it benefits them to destroy crops so that they can maintain a price level, a price point. Sometimes it has to do with the price point. This is very
Yeah.
But
common
bro,
practice.
I seen them not only telling people to farmers to destroy crops, but I also seen videos that were surfacing around on social media where they had small oil companies where they were sending them letters to just dispose of the oil. The oils that was sitting in their little storage tanks on these
Just spill
out at
them.
these lacks. Yeah. Just basically, yeah, just open that shit up, let it.
Sometimes I wonder about that. I swear, because these people are smart. They really get the smartest people in the world that works for these damn oil companies and shit. It's the best job for you to get. So I mean, like, you're a smart guy, you go get a job for one of these oil companies. These guys are really smart. So I be wondering about some of these spills that happen and some of the pipeline bursts that be happening. I wonder about that shit because I'm like, especially the pipeline ones, because I'm like, I know they spent a whole lot of time working on that
Man,
shit.
bro, that's just like all of the chemical plants and Houston, down in the Pasadena LaPorte area. It is cheaper for them to pay a EPA fine than it is to try to dispose of that shit the proper way. So it's better for them to burn that shit in reactors and release the gases in the atmosphere, than than it's cheaper for them just to pay the fine than to try to dispose of it properly. You think about how many trucks they would have to bring in, load these trucks, then they gotta pay. They gotta pay you because that shit ain't gonna be cheap. So they can just burn that sludge off. Run that shit through the reactors and let that shit burn all night. Sometimes you driving through Houston, just look to the southeast, you'll see the damn sky be lit up orange because all of the refineries over there got their reactors flaring off.
I
They
know.
burning off shit.
It's like Texas don't give a damn about the environment, bro. We're like China. Um, what is that neighborhood? There's a whole neighborhood that smell like fucking donkey nuts. Pleasantville. We used to live over there.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Pleasantville smelled like donkey nuts, and they could keep that name.
It's not very pleasant. The neighborhood, they have a suit. I don't know what happened with it, but the people who own houses over there were suing related to that air pollution stink that's over there. We didn't live there that long, 6 to 8 months or something. And I don't remember what happened. My mom, she didn't have, she just randomly ended up renting a house out there. We was there like 6 months. And
Bro,
literally it
it's
stinks. Every day you walk out of the house, you smell that same smell. I don't really know what it smells like. I just use donkey nuts but it stinks.
Nah,
I don't know what it smells like. I don't know what donkey nuts smell like. I'm just saying.
yeah.
yeah, the shit crazy, bro. But it makes you wonder. Sometimes I sit back and I think about that shit, and I wonder what was there first. Was this refinery there first, or was these homes there? And then I think about, okay, if the homes wasn't there, so that means the developer of this subdivision, who's probably now dead and gone, but his family has benefited off of the money. The decision that he made to put this development or this subdivision right over by a refinery, knowing the repercussions of that shit, like. But at the end of the day, it's cheaper for them just because they already have that money set aside, bro. They had that money set aside because you think about what happened back in West Virginia back in the day with the chemical plant company Roman Haas, DuPont. All of those chemicals that they buried underground, and kids were being born with, you know,
Yeah, well, what
no
they
eyes
do,
and all that shit, bro. They
I
set that money aside now. So
yeah, I
it's like,
know,
okay, they can sue
and it's
and we'll
still
pay out,
we
but
don't
it's
care because
cheaper.
we just made $1 trillion. So y'all make us pay even if y'all charge $1 billion, we just made $1 trillion. Yeah, so what they do is they put those factories right next to low income communities, right next to black and brown communities, blacks and Hispanics and shit. I've seen it time and time again. They can't pull it off. The other communities are gonna be like, nah, nigga, y'all can't build that shit over here. Fuck that. We're gonna be breathing that shit in. So then they slide it in on the black and brown communities, and they do it all the time. You know,
one
put a
that's
fucking
working
dump.
the one that's working all the time, and all they know is that before you know it, where you say, "Oh, they must be building new neighborhoods over here," and before you know it, they got the plants there.
Yep.
Or a
Yep.
trash dump, or
Yep. They
or
put them land.
they'll send a train through there or some shit like that. That's what they love to
Yep.
do, bruh. So, and I'm sure
Yep.
they do this around the world because looking at from, you know, that's been my personal experience, but I think they do that around the world. They go to the indigenous areas, and that's why you have the indigenous people complaining about the oil companies spilling shit into their water and shit. So I think they're doing the exact same thing around the world where they're just like, send the pipeline through the Chihuahua group, you know, fuck them. and then when they have problems, oh, we need to get rid of that shit, spill it in the Chihuahua group, fuck them.
Ah,
What they gonna do?
it's crazy, bro.
Cry about
Right.
it.
They're gonna start rain dancing on some ass. That's what need to be happening.
Yeah, but they don't have no nukes. Them niggas got nukes. They got fucking choppers, helicopters.
You better remember that damn voodoo, that hoodoo,
It,
and whatever else needed.
yeah, well, I believe the natural reset is coming. And like that is what happened with the Haitian Revolution, because they did have superior power, but them niggas used what they knew and they scared the shit out of them niggas. They had them
Bruh.
niggas shitting in their pants, bro.
Look, I'm gonna tell you.
I
most
love the
cases-
Haitian Revolution. Y'all look that shit
and,
up.
and in most cases, when people say it's something that's coming, it's already there.
I think it has pretty much happened and we're just not aware. And they not aware. And nobody's aware. We're asleep. We're in the matrix.
With 242,000 acres of farmland and 27,000 acres of other land across 19 different states, according to the land report. With the largest chunk of his land being in Louisiana and Arkansas, as well as
Why the hell this nigga got so much farmland, bro? And why is so much of it in Louisiana and Arkansas?
They plan
Because
on
they know they
poisoning
were
a
gonna
bunch of
sell.
niggas.
Hey, bro, and you think about that shit. You think about it. Bill Gates has been number one and talking about the world is overpopulated. We're overpopulated, and that's what I'm saying. Like, who makes this motherfucker God for you to feel like that? You know, and not only does he own all of this farmland, a lot of people don't realize that he is the world leader. He owns majority, like when it comes down to vaccinations.
Yep.
That's his charity.
Pharmaceuticals.
And he sends all of that shit over there. Yeah, pharmaceutical. He sends all of that shit over there to Africa and all of these other places, bro. Like, this motherfucker, he's fucking evil, bro. And then look at the questioning. I forget that was back in the 90s, wasn't it? I think it was, where they were trying to prosecute his ass, and he ended up getting off. So his whole deal was he's gonna start some type of vaccination company or expand it into other countries to help the U.S. or something like that. It was, but man, this dude is pure
Yeah,
fucking evil,
he pretty much handed over his company to someone else so that he can do philanthropy. But I mean,
Okay.
he still, yeah,
That just gives him full time to work on whatever he really wants to work on, and it also gives him a buffer zone so that they can't, persecute him behind stuff that his companies are doing. It gives another little layer of protection.
Well, I'm gonna tell you like this. A lot of these people that you're seeing today, their parents were into a lot of these same things when they were alive, because
Yeah, Bill
they
Gates,
couldn't-
right? His
Bill-
mom.
his
What
dad,
was-
no,
it
his
was his
dad,
dad.
his dad worked along with Margaret Sanger in the eugenics project.
Eugenics. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I thought it was his
And,
mom. Go ahead.
but they were also in connection with Fauci, Fugazi.
And they're making a bunch of money too off of this shit. So it's like, okay, on one hand, you got the pandemic and the pharmaceuticals, and then on the other hand, you got food. And then like food and drugs go together, right? Food and Drug Administration, fucking
Well, the people that can control the things that go into your body pretty much control the people. The people who control the money can control the country. The people, how does that go?
I heard that
Either
before
way,
somewhere. Yeah.
they have all the powers over pretty much everybody and everything.
Fucking crazy. Let me play a little bit more of this.
Was his home state of Washington. Bill Gates, the guy who cheerleaded the whole pandemic, ran a simulation for COVID before anyone knew what COVID even was, with Event 201, who invested in these vaccine companies and funded the efforts to make the vaccine. He's now the biggest farmland owner in the United States right when food shortages are announced on the horizon. No, nothing to see here. Nothing.
Nothing to see here. We'll just come on, just keep on going. There's nothing to talk about there because there's nothing to it.
Fuck. Fuck.
Nothing suspicious at all. Earlier this month in Iowa, they reported a surge in bird flu cases that resulted in killing 5 million egg-laying chickens. Earlier this year, a turkey farm was taken out for the same reasons. They say that infected birds have been found in at least 24 states, and the virus has been circulating and migrating waterfowl in Europe and Asia for nearly a year. So they're killing all these chickens, and the prices of fertilizers
Well-
are already at 40%, and now with the
Pause.
conflict in Ukraine and
Yeah.
Now, see, this whole idea, because, I mean, if you go back to the beginning of the pandemic, all the things that they assured you was that this thing was not able to pass from human to
Right.
to animals.
Yeah.
So they're using the same bullshit. They're using the opposite lie to give you the reason why they need to kill off all this fowl, the birds and stuff, so that they can control, modify, do whatever. Because I mean, if you got control over pharmaceuticals and food, you know, like you can create, like, I mean, shoot, they can practically everything that they've been injecting, you know, asking your permission, telling you to give your, you sign over your rights and before you take this thing. They're not even gonna do that now. They're gonna pretty much feed it to you through the food.
Don't
Yeah.
even ask your permission. You better
Hey.
read. You better read the ingredient label. It's kind of like the
Hey,
damn.
You remember?
Go
You
ahead.
remember? Y'all remember? And I know y'all probably remember this shit. I want to say it was towards the end of last year when we were talking about the vaccination, and I had told Pat, I was like, man, it's funny how when you go get tested, I'm thinking that they putting that shit. And we were talking about the food. That's funny, bro. Like this dude on all this farmland, these birds. Who's to say that these birds actually? Yeah, they may have been killed, but they're killed when they slaughter them. Who say this shit not circulating around, bro?
We already ate them hoes. They went into. I would say
You
chicken
feel-
nuggets, but they said there ain't no chicken in chicken nuggets. I just saw a report about the McDonald's chicken nuggets. It's like no
But
chicken in
see,
it.
here's the thing, bro. Because like you think about it, like I remember during the pandemic when it was heightened and people were going, you couldn't find a deep freezer. People were going into the stores. This was before they put limits on how much meat you could buy, like on chicken and pork and shit like that.
Yeah.
Right? Back then, dude, how big these fucking young whole chickens were. A whole chicken usually, I mean, a normal whole chicken is probably a little bit bigger than a Cornish hen. You know, maybe two Cornish hens together. Dude, these chickens were fucking swole. We didn't eat no chicken. I tell you, I didn't want
I'm
no
telling
chicken.
you.
I didn't want no pork. Even the pork chops looked fucking disgusting. Like I
That's-
didn't eat none of that shit, bro. And it's like now that I watched this video.
That's why I don't fuck
Earlier
with
today.
chicken breasts or those leg quarters. I don't fuck
None
with
of
that shit. Yeah,
none of
because
that shit,
why the
bro.
fuck is that shit so big, bro? That ain't right.
Yeah. Yeah, and then now they're going around telling people, oh, we should leave the meat alone, start practicing and, a vegetarian diet and this and this and that. And it's like, motherfucker, y'all putting that shit in the vegetables too. Y'all
Right.
think y'all slick.
GMO vegetables too. And then if you try to go vegan, ain't nothing coming out of a box gonna be healthy for you, bro. Anything
No.
that's got preservatives, that's been preserved, it's not gonna be good for you.
And
Period.
that beyond meat. That beyond meat. I don't know. I don't want to get this wrong, so I'm not gonna say any brand name, but they tested vegan meat off the grocery store shelves. They found that the vegan meat that was on the grocery store shelves had chemicals that they would use to preserve bodies. They found in another it was a couple of other brands that they found, and they pulled it off of the shelf for a while after these people done this research and found, but they found that this shit had traces of human remains in it.
Ugh.
This vegan meat that was coming from other countries that was on the store shelves.
Ugh, you're killing me, bro. I'm gonna go throw her up. Let me play some of this.
Russia, it's really heating up. It's looking grim because Russia and Ukraine make up more than 30% of the global wheat market and are considered the breadbasket of Europe. Many African and Middle Eastern countries source over 50% of their wheat from Russia and Ukraine. About 400 million people are dependent on Russia and Ukraine for food. Because of all these circumstances, wheat prices are up 21% and barley is up 33%. Wartime profiteering, am I right? And let's not forget that even before the war, grocery store prices were at an all-time high everywhere.
Boom. I really wanted to say that because we was talking about inflation a lot on the show, and they were talking about the war and inflation, but the prices were up before the war in Ukraine started, right? Even the gas prices.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
But they
yeah.
point the finger at everything. Putin, Russia, everything is gonna be blamed on them because that's who that's their op. And in order for them to be able to go and you know set their claim on why they gotta
Cause
neutralize him or
I was noticing it that in some products the price wouldn't change, but the portion amount would, like the cereal boxes was getting smaller. Number of ounces in it is smaller. You know what I'm saying? In different ways they were doing the packaging and shit like that. And just the regular prices of stuff like eggs or whatever, like the regular stuff, those prices were just more bread, stuff like that. And I noticed this shit, and this was before Ukraine, and it was like, I don't know, going into the pandemic, and then it's like you go into a pandemic and everybody is struggling and the damn prices of the food is already high. And then, you know what? Let's raise the prices some more. We gave them some checks. they I hope you saved that $1,200 we gave y'all, because you're gonna need that for bread and eggs, motherfucker.
only if you
Yeah,
niggas
that
knew.
shit.
If y'all would have went and used that money and got you a few chickens, maybe a cow, got your friends, get your friends to go in with you, and they get a bull, and then y'all start sharing. I mean, it's almost like shit. You should have been pooling that money to make something like create a community.
Man, let
Yeah.
me play some more.
But don't worry, the fine people at Bloomberg have offered us a solution in the form of a tweet that got ratioed to hell and back, recommending using lentils instead of meat, switching to public transportation, avoiding buying things in bulk. The author of the article they linked recommended that families who earn less than $300,000 a year embrace a vegetarian diet and, quote, rethink those costly pet medical needs, end quote. Just go have all your family pets euthanized. It's that simple. Children won't go hungry if you just go have your cat put down and you start your steady diet of Soylent Green. cricket burgers, and cockroach aioli. Don't worry, you can still have your free Krispy Kreme as long as you show them your passport for your 8th booster. In all seriousness, be prepared, but I don't think you should excessively worry and go raid the grocery store if you live in the US. We're a huge exporter of food and we run on corn, meaning that the livestock is predominantly corn fed and there's a lot of corn to go around. But I think what
They don't mean they're gonna give us that corn. I was just studying the potato famine that happened in Ireland, and it was really a genocide. And you know what's crazy? Because it was a famine, and a lot of people died. Like what did they say? I don't know, bro. Like a huge amount of Irish people died in this famine. Like it changed their population to the point where they to this day they don't have the amount of population in Ireland to this day that they had before this famine happened. Okay, that's how impactful it was. So, but guess what? Guess what they don't teach you? They was growing enough food to feed all the people in Ireland. Guess where that food went to? Livestock. That food went to livestock to feed the people outside of Ireland. They purposely starved these people and fed the food to the fucking cows. So don't think they're gonna give us that corn.
we're actually about to see is that poorer countries will be pushed even further to the brink of destabilization with food shortages. But also keep in mind, if food prices exceed a certain average income threshold, riots and instability will be close by. Since the average citizen is being forced to spend this huge chunk of their income just to eat, just to survive. So that's the average income person. Imagine what it's like for lower income people. We lootin' the Winn-Dixie tonight. Listen, for real though, if I see you sliding a jar of peanut butter and a loaf of bread in your purse, you think I'm saying anything? You trying to feed your children? I'm not saying anything. I didn't see nothing. Food prices have gone up since the beginning of lockdown, and we're watching gas and energy prices rise, and housing is insanely expensive. And the inflation they said was transitory, well, isn't. That money you've been saving up for years is worth less and less as the days go on, but wages haven't caught up to these rising costs, the higher cost of living, and that's the reality of wage slavery. After all, it was Henry Kissinger who said, "Who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. Who controls money can control the world."
That was the quote you was looking for, huh? Earlier, Pat. I think that was the quote you was looking for right there.
That shit crazy, bro.
It's crazy, bro. Crazy. I'm putting y'all to sleep. Let me play just a little end because her solutions are, grow you a garden. Let's play.
And that, internet friends, is where we land on the solutions portion of this video. A rare segment in a really graceful video, but important nonetheless. And it's about what you can control. What you can personally, tangibly control with your own two hands. Because there will always be war. There will always be greed. There will always be evil people who want to rule the world. And there will always be news stories reporting all of this with agendas we've only begun to understand. But you personally can cultivate skills to help yourself and your family live outside of their system. And it might seem like such a little insignificant thing. People will belittle it in the comments, learning how to grow a vegetable garden, using herbs to make your own medicines, raising backyard chickens for eggs to barter with your neighbors. Things like that, but it's actually really important. It's a big thing you can do to supplement what you already have and earn a little freedom from the system along the way. During World War II, the U.S. encouraged citizens to plant victory gardens as a patriotic duty, as the surplus of vegetables produced by these gardens helped offset cost and lowered the price of vegetables used to feed the troops. So every family had a little garden, working with what space they had to produce what they could, eat what they grew, and canning the rest for winter. Of course, there are plenty of people who still garden to this day, but a lot of us are so removed from our food and how it's made. And maybe our parents didn't teach us how to do these things because their parents didn't teach them, so we don't know where to start. But literally all you need is a plot of tilled soil or some buckets from Home Depot with drainage holes at the bottom, and you can make your own soil mix, whatever, and go to town. You can start plants from seed. You can buy your plants, which is more expensive. I mean, I buy mine from a neighbor who has a greenhouse, but if you take care of your plants, water them, love them, do what you gotta do, you're going to have a return. And that's one less thing you're buying from the grocery store. And you can grow a lot, even an herb garden on the balcony of your apartment from the back deck of your house. You don't have to have a ton of space. I'm sharing pictures on the screen right now of beautiful gardens that belong to our internet friends. My whole point is, yeah, there are probably some items you can't find at your grocery store right now that you wish you could, but things aren't that bad yet. Why not take this year to learn these necessary skills when there's no heat on you and you don't have to get it right the first time. So you can get some practice in case hard times are around the corner. That's what you should do this year.
I think that's a good recommendation that she has.